This is presentation 7 of the New York State Grades 3 to 8 ELA Rubric and Scoring Training Series, the Grades 6 through 8 ELA Extended Response 4-Point Rubric. This section of the training will explain the use of the new 4-point rubric for scoring extended responses. Please have a copy of the rubric handy. You may wish to make notes directly on the rubric. While writing from a text requires reading comprehension skills, the 4-point questions are more focused on writing, crafting an extended essay, than are the 2-point questions. While each question is aligned with a specific Common Core standard, the rubric lists all the standards that are being assessed by the 4-point questions. Remember that there are multiple ways to respond to each question and no one correct way to respond to the question. If you do not have a separate copy of the 4-point rubric, you can find one in the Extended Response Guide Set handout. You may wish to remove it from the handout packet so that you can refer to it while reviewing the student responses. The rubric looks like this. We will look at each score point in detail, but remember you are not assigning 4 separate scores to each response, but one overall, holistic, best fit score. The score points are made up of all the criteria, and they're in the columns that go down the rubric. Please take several minutes to read through the entire rubric and then, using a highlighter or pen, mark the descriptors that change as you move through the score points for each of the categories. You should pause this presentation until you've completed the activity. As we go through this rubric, pay attention to the descriptors you just noted in the earlier activity. Now we're going to look at each score point in detail. The first criterion is content and analysis, the extent to which the essay conveys complex ideas and information clearly and accurately in order to support claims in an analysis of topics or texts. This is used to assess Writing Standard 2 or Reading Standards 1 through 9. Let's look at the first bullet in Level 4. Essays at a Level 4 clearly introduce a topic in a manner that's compelling and follow logically from the task and purpose. At a Level 3, essays clearly introduce a topic in a manner that follows from the task and purpose. So notice the difference is in a Level 4, it states that the essays are compelling and they follow logically. It doesn't make that statement in a Level 3. At a Level 2, essays introduce a topic in a manner that follows generally from the task and purpose, and in a Level 1 they introduce a topic in a manner that does not logically follow from the task and purpose. The second bullet point at a Level 4, essays demonstrate insightful analysis of the texts, while at a Level 3 they demonstrate grade-appropriate analysis of the texts. At a Level 2 they demonstrate a literal comprehension of the text, and essays at a Level 1 demonstrate little understanding of the texts. Essays at a Level 0 demonstrate a lack of comprehension of the texts or task. The next criterion is command of evidence. That's the extent to which the essay presents evidence from the provided text to support analysis and reflection. This is used to assess Writing Standard 9 and Reading Standards 1 through 9. Essays at a Level 4 develop the topic with relevant, well-chosen facts, definitions, concrete details, quotations or other information, and examples from the texts. At a Level 3, they develop the text with relevant facts, definitions, details, quotations or other information, and examples from the text. At a 2, students partially develop the topic of the essay with the use of some textual evidence, some of which may be irrelevant. And at a Level 1, they demonstrate an attempt to use evidence, but only develop ideas with minimal, occasional evidence, which is generally invalid or irrelevant. Finally, at a Level 0, students provide no evidence or provide evidence that is completely irrelevant. If you go back to Level 4, it also states that students at a Level 4 sustain the use of varied relevant evidence. At a Level 3, they sustain the use of relevant evidence with some lack of variety, and at Level 2 they use relevant evidence inconsistently. There's no mention at Level 1 or Level 0 of that factor. The next criterion is coherence, organization, and style. That's the extent to which the essay logically organizes complex ideas, concepts, and information using formal style and precise language. This criterion is used to assess Writing Standard 2, Language Standard 3, and Language Standard 6. At level 4, essays exhibit clear organization with the skillful use of appropriate and varied transitions to create a unified whole and enhance meaning. At level 3, they exhibit clear organization with the use of appropriate transitions to create a unified whole. At a 2, essays exhibit some attempt at organization with inconsistent use of transitions. At a level 0, they exhibit little attempt at organization, or attempts to organize are irrelevant to the task. And essays at a level 0 exhibit no evidence of organization. Going back to the level 4, the second bullet point, essays establish and maintain a formal style while using grade-appropriate, stylistically sophisticated language and domain-specific vocabulary with a notable sense of voice. Take a look over at level 3. Students establish and maintain a formal style using precise language and domain-specific vocabulary. Notice that there's no mention of voice, and it certainly doesn't mention anything about them being stylistically sophisticated. That's definitely a characteristic of a level 4 essay. A level 2 essay, students establish but fail to maintain a formal style with inconsistent use of language and domain-specific vocabulary. At a level 1, they lack a formal style using language that's imprecise or inappropriate to the texts and task. Level 0, students use language that is predominantly incoherent or copied directly from the texts. Finally, the last bullet point in level 4, students provide a concluding statement or section that's compelling and follows clearly from the topic and information presented, while at level 3, the essays provide a concluding statement or section that follows from the topic or information presented. Mentions nothing about them being compelling. At a level 2, students provide a concluding statement or section that follows generally from the topic and information presented. At a 1, students provide a concluding statement or section that's illogical or unrelated to the topic and information presented. Level 0, students do not provide a concluding statement or section. The last criterion is control of conventions. That's the extent to which the essay demonstrates command of the conventions of standard English grammar, usage, capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. This criterion assesses Writing Standard 2, Language Standard 1, or Language Standard 2. Essays at a 4 demonstrate grade-appropriate command of conventions with few errors. At a 3, they demonstrate grade-appropriate command of conventions with occasional errors that don't hinder the comprehension of the essay. At a level 2, they demonstrate emerging command of the conventions with some errors that may hinder comprehension. Essays at a level 1 demonstrate a lack of command of conventions with frequent errors that hinder comprehension. And essays at a level 0 are minimal, making assessment of the conventions unreliable. Finally, we have to take a look down at the bottom of the rubric. Notice that there are 4 bullet points down there. You have to consider these criteria as well when you're evaluating a paper. The first one, if the prompt requires 2 texts and the student only references 1 text, the response can be scored no higher than a 2. If they're asking for 2 texts, make sure the student is using references from both texts. If the student writes only a personal response and makes no reference to the texts, the response can be scored no higher than a 1. Responses that are totally unrelated to the topic, illegible, incoherent, or blank should be given a 0, and a response totally copied from the text with no original student writing should be scored as a 0. As you apply the rubric, remember that it's to be used holistically. You are not assigning 4 separate scores to each response, but 1 overall holistic best fit score. All of the criteria must be considered. Very rarely will a response meet every bullet point for any specific score point, and 1 bullet point does not a score point make. You will need to find out what the best fit score is for each response. You should remove the rubric from the packet so you're able to refer to it while reviewing the 4-point student responses. Knowing the rubric is necessary to score accurately, but you'll need to also become familiar with the guide papers provided as well. Think of it like this. The rubric tells us what a response at each score point looks like, but the guide papers show us what responses look like at that score point. Scorers will need to reference both rubrics and their guide papers while scoring. We'll take a look at the guide papers in another presentation.